I I think it's important to let them know that everything's going to be okay. And also depending on their age. I think if my kids were their age now, I'd probably have a little bit more honest conversations with them. I mean, my boys are 11 and 12. So I feel like we're having conversations now that are pretty cool and much more in depth. But at that time when they were 3 and 5, I just wanted them to feel safe. I wanted them to be, happy. When this was a time when we were going back and forth with custody. So we were fighting for custody, but she had them for 7 days. I had them for 7 days, and the days that I didn't have them were just miserable. Like, I mean, I couldn't sleep. I was worried about their safety. It'd be different a little bit if she wasn't struggling with, addiction. But because she was struggling with addiction, I was so worried. I was so stressed. So yeah, that was pretty brutal. But the main goal was just making sure that the normal life went on for the kids as best as possible until we figured out what was it going to be like long term, permanent, which was a scary thought.
Do you have any, just real quick one, and then I want to kind of get into a little bit of a different topic, but do you have any plans to like share more with them as they continue to mature to make sure that they kind of, I don't know, it's like I've heard a lot of input from men on this podcast being like, we're pretty candid with our kids, and that seems to be the right answer nowadays, because like your kids figure out that you're hiding stuff, right? And so I guess balancing like oversharing with, I don't want them to think we have this like dirty little secret we can't address. Like where are you at with that? And what is your kind of game plan for how to effectively teach them kind of the hard lessons that need to be learned from this past, right? And obviously it's not the ideal, but it is their past, right or wrong, And so,
Yeah.
There's an element of here where you're going to have to kind of guide them through that. What's that going to look like, or how do you plan to do that?
For me is just asking them questions and then answering them. I'm not going to just
Okay.
give them information. I mean, honestly, I don't think kids want to know as much as parents want to tell
Yeah.
them. I think parents tell their kids stuff to get them off their chest. And there's nothing wrong with being candid. I don't have an issue with that. It's just sometimes kids just want to be kids. They don't want to think mommy was bad or daddy was bad. So, I mean, even to this day, we haven't seen her in 6.5 years, however long it's been. And I don't talk bad about her. The kids never bring her up. They were so young, but I'll ask them every once in a while. I'll say, do you ever think about your mom? They call her their old mommy, because I've been with my fiance for several years now, but they would say, no, never think of my old mommy. I was like, well, if you have any questions, you can talk about her. You can ask to see a picture of her. You can, that's your biological mother. And until she started to have some issues, which haven't really gone into, I say she was a great mom. She loved you guys. So like, I just make sure that, because I hope and pray one day she comes back into their lives. Not for my sake, but for her sake, I do, because I want her to break the addiction. I want her to have a relationship with her kids. And if all I did was talk bad about her, they wouldn't want that in the future. And I think it would be awkward, obviously, after not seeing someone for so long. But yeah, so I mean, in the future, I'll continue to ask them questions and let them know that I'm here to talk about them. But I don't think I'll go into it a whole lot if they don't ask.
Yeah, that seems like a very wise approach, and I love that tactic of kind of just ask first, right?
Right.
And not very, very different experiences, but like, kids will hear things at school or whatever, right? And so like a tactic that we've learned, my wife and I, is like, don't just leap to the conclusion that your kid thinks that means what it actually means, and
Right.
like ask them
Yeah.
first, what do you think that means? And then be like,
Yeah.
whoa, if I would have just leapt into that, I would have like really shattered their innocence unnecessarily here, So that's a great tactic. I really like that a lot. And then you also raise an extremely good point that we've also heard echoed a lot here from experts on kind of like co-parenting is never badmouth the other parent. And it's so critical because your kids will know, like, I'm part of mommy. So if you're bad-mouthing, the other parent, like, the kids are going to take that on for themselves too, in a way, because they're not idiots. They know where they come from, right? And yeah, I think that's very wise and required of you to not badmouth her, because if the door ever does open for reconciliation there, that will be a very healing experience for your children, even if it's a very superficial relationship. There's a level of closure and healing that comes from that will help them later in life. So, if it never comes, obviously we don't want that to happen, but really good points there. And so this dovetails really well into what I wanted you to speak to next was, obviously she's been out of the picture for many years now, right? I think you said it was since 2018. You
Yeah,
haven't seen her.
June
Obviously,
2018.
okay, so your kids haven't seen her either for a long time now. You've been a single dad with full custody of 3 kids, right?
Yep.
That's kind of a unique situation, right? Normally, single dads are kind of splitting time. So, one, how did you even manage that in the first place, especially with all this stress and having to kind of build your life back? And what are some practical lessons you've learned there that single dads can kind of take away from this?
Yeah. First and foremost, I was so happy to get sole custody of them. That was it was such a long battle. We had 4 different judges who didn't know anything about the case. Every time we sat in front of them, we had a guardian ad litem who was 100% on her side, not even a close second, until the very end. And then, I remember having a conversation with my parents and just saying, I give up, in the sense that I I know God loves these kids more than I do. So if I don't get custody, I'm trusting that he's going to protect them, because he loves them more than I do. So he's going to protect them. Maybe there's some weird reason why I don't get custody or something, but it was just getting so frustrating that I was stressing about it so much. I was like, I just got to let go and let God, so to speak. And then within 2 weeks, her mom wrote an affidavit for me. The babysitter that she had wrote an affidavit for me. The irrigation guy who found, her passed out in the middle of the day wrote a letter for me. So then they had no choice. The judge and the guardian ad litem was like, okay, obviously, if her own mom and the people she's paying, like the babysitter and other people, are going to say something. So, I mean, it was a miracle. I mean, it truly was a miracle. And so I say that to say that I was so happy that I got them, and that I didn't have to pay her child support. I was so angry that I could potentially have to pay her child support and me not have my kids full time. I was like, that's ridiculous. And so the fact that I was getting them full time and didn't have to pay child support was so amazing that I didn't think about all the work I was going to have to do. I mean, my daughter was a year and a half. She had just turned 2 at this time. My son is 4, another son is 5.5, maybe just turned 6. And I mean, that's hard. I mean, still in diapers, me starting my new career so I had a lot of help from my sister-in-law, who was a school teacher. I had help from my mom. My mom and dad are great. They have 13 grandkids right now, with 3 more on the way. So my parents are awesome with helping. And mine were the first kids. So they didn't have as many grandkids back then. So between my parents' help and, other help, I was able to do it. And then I quickly became a loan officer. So even though I started as an assistant making $10 an hour, I quickly got past my test and became a loan officer, because then I was basically self-employed, in the sense that I can work my own hours. I can do what I had to do. So I just learned to become very efficient with my time. I probably only worked about 20 hours a week, because, I had to do drop-offs and pick-offs from school and daycare, and, field trips and stuff like that. So, I mean, besides the crazy height of the market in 2020, end of 2020 and early in 2021, when we were just so busy with refinances, I probably only average about 20 hours a week, doing what I do, just because I had to learn to become efficient with my time. I think a lot of people think they're working when they're not really working. But me becoming efficient with my time allowed me to be there for them. Every field trip, every school event, graduation, concert, whatever, coaching their soccer team. It's been amazing. And I know most parents probably say that, but my kids are the best kids, in the sense that they've never thrown a temper tantrum. They never told me no. They don't they literally are so obedient. Now they're kids, so they'll forget stuff, or they'll make mistakes and stuff like that, but they are just so easy. I feel like God just blessed me so much. We never had the terrible 2s, terrible 3s, never had any issues. Everybody says, wait till they're teenagers. And I was like, well, so far so good. So I've been very blessed with good kids and a job that is flexible, so I can be there for everything.